Well, to the budget now as 2 weeks on, and the ideas outlined in the Liberal plan seem to be failing to catch any fire. Liberal numbers are still mired in the low 20s, despite the government's attempt to secure the youth vote with their promise to make the economy more fair for every generation, and despite the government's promises to make life affordable for everyone with their focus on housing. Here is the latest analysis from 338 Canada. Based on available polls, 338 says Conservatives are at 42% support, the Liberals are at 24%, New Democrats sit at 18%, the Bloc are at 8%, and the Greens are at 4%. Well, for more, polls analyst Philippe Fournier joins us right now. He's the editor-in-chief of 338 Canada. Philippe, good to see you. Thank you for being here.
Good evening, Michael.
Now, as I said, the budget seems to be failing to catch any fire. Talk to us about what Canadians are actually saying about the Liberal plan.
Well, here's the problem with the Liberal plan, because Canadians are not saying much about it. Even though there was a rollout for 2 to 3 weeks prior to the budget, the numbers barely have moved. I follow the numbers on a daily and weekly basis. And at the start of April, we had the Conservatives with a lead of about 15 to 17 points. Now it's 18 points. So not only did the trend did not reverse itself, it seems to be even accentuated. And so, of course, it's a bit early to see the direct effect of the budget in the electorate, but so far it's not a good news for the Trudeau team for sure.
Okay, not good news, and from the numbers I see, not even amongst the Gen Z and millennials they are trying to target. So from what you have seen or shared there, it might not surprise the government, because apparently Justin Trudeau did tell his team that Liberal numbers would not improve until sometime next year if the interest rates are down and if people are feeling better with their bank accounts. You know, I'm wondering, when you look historically at polls, is that enough to pull the Liberals out of this 16-point deficit behind Conservatives?
Well, the state of the economy, it is no surprise that it often is correlated with the state of a government. However, this aging government, 9 years in, close to a decade with this Liberal government, and the economy is in a bad shape. Inflation is still high, even though it's coming back down, but the effects are still being felt by many Canadians. When you promise that perhaps the interest rate, which the government doesn't control, will come down and that will help our numbers, this could be a bit of wishful thinking. It's not just a few months trend. Now we're almost 1 year into this lead for the Conservatives, this double-digit lead that is spread throughout the country, and that's another problem for the Liberals. It's not just one region or two; it's basically everywhere. And even in Quebec, where the Liberals have fared well in past years, now they're in the mid-20s at best.
Okay, now you call it wishful thinking, perhaps wishful thinking, but you know, the Liberal argument also hinges on this idea that Canadians may be tired of Trudeau, but they don't necessarily love Pierre Poilievre. Does that still hold true, though? You know, Pierre Poilievre has gone through this image overhaul. His party has been running these ads. Is Pierre Poilievre becoming a better selling point for his party?
Well, he has for sure managed to coalesce his party behind him, which is something that Mr. O'Toole, for instance, never could do during his reign as a Conservative leader. When we look at the numbers, we see right now the Conservatives do have their coalition, their winning coalition for a government win next year. And so, I mean, in hockey terms, you could say the Conservatives could play the trap. They have their winning coalition. They can just wait it out and see what's going on in the heads of Liberals for the next year, but they don't need to win over new voters. They're at 40, 42, 43% nationally, according to the polls. That's enough for a win, especially with a very unpopular prime minister and an NDP that's going nowhere, basically.
Okay, well, you say the NDP, and I also want to ask you about that party, because as we know, the Liberals and the New Democrats, they do have this supply and confidence agreement. Despite that, we see the NDP leader not giving immediate thumbs up to the budget. You know, why is Mr. Singh doing that? When you look at the numbers, why is he publicly so hesitant about this budget?
That is a very good question, Michael. I must say I am very careful to not tread on other people's terrain. I'm a polls guy, and when I look at the numbers, I see absolutely no leverage for the NDP. The NDP, half of their caucus is in British Columbia, And the latest polls that we saw out of BC, the federal polls that we see out of BC, the Conservatives could win as much as 45 or 50% of the vote, which would decimate the NDP caucus. And to compensate for those projected loss in British Columbia, there's no sign in the prairies, in Ontario, in Atlantic Canada, or in Quebec that the NDP could recover. And so this strategy from Mr. Singh, I'm guessing it's like bluffing at poker, but electorally, if you look at a purely numbered stance, there's no way that the NDP could gain anything out of that. But we'll see what they decide to do.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it will actually hurt his image to kind of be playing this card time and again.
It's possible. Mr. Singh's numbers have taken a hit in recent months, but they're still lukewarm, I would say. Mr. Singh has favorables and unfavorables that are relatively at the same level, but also he's not judged at the same level as Mr. Trudeau or Mr. Poilievre. Sometimes a third-party leader will have good numbers because he or she is not a threat to the status quo. There's no indication that there's an orange wave coming with Mr. Singh in the numbers that we see right now.
Okay. Well, Philippe, always appreciate the conversation. Thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Michael.
And that's Philippe Fournier.